Shalom to the elect of Israel, to the whole flock of Israel, you Hebrew Israelites, you so-called Negroes, Latinos, Native Americans, West Indians, and Haitians. Gotta give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh Bahashim Yahweh Shai, the Most High, the Heavenly Father. His Hebrew name is Yahweh, not Yahweh, not Jehovah, not God, not Elohim, not Most High, not Lord, not Yah, not Jah, not Ahai, not Allah, not Abba, not Yahuwah, not Hashem, not Yahweh, Haveh, Vaveh. It's Yahweh. And his only begotten son name in the Hebrew is Yahweh Shai. Not Yahshua, not Yeshua, not Jesus Christos, not Jesus Christ, not Serapis Christos, not Yeshaya, not Yehoshua, not Yahusha, not Yeshua, not Jesus Christos. It's Yahweh Shai. So we got to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashim Yahweh Shai, Bahashim Rikah Quadash. Double honors to the apostles, the elder bishop and elders of great millstone who rule well, who teach well, who are the apostles and elders of all of Israel, whether accepted or not. And a sincere salutation to all the Akim, believing this truth and pushing this truth with the four winds of the earth, the entire world, shed light to the whole elect. Shalom to the Akwath who are listening learning. If you sis who are listening learning. I'm Isaiah from GMS Orlando, Camp Prophet of Doom, coming from our lesson, truth, facts, faith, and edification, and the data edification, Lord willing to be edifying. And this is a video I saw from the elder in LA, Elder Mawatazak. And this video is very heavy, dealing with the origins of the Canaanites and their wickedness. So I was just thinking about, because listening to the apostles, elder bishops, and elders over the years, and the Elder Yashwama make the point a lot, how the self-proclaimed so-called white man, he brought to America, Babylon the Great, all the idol worshiping, all the wickedness that the Canaanites did. They have brought it here to America. That's why in America you can worship any idol, you can follow any religion, anything, as long as it's according to his laws, his penal codes, his statutes, you can do it. But the so-called white man, they brought all the idol worshiping of those Hamite nations, the Canaanites. Hey, so Lord Wickedness is lesson be edifying. This is copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act 1976. Allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing non-profit educational or personal use tips to balance in favor of fair use. This is for educational purposes only. This is not for monetary gain. I do not own a copyright to this video. It's for educational purposes only. Lord wouldn't be edifying. And this guy mentioned Yahweh in this video, but the Most High name is Yahweh. And you got to chew up the meat and spit out the bones. But this is an edifying lesson, because this is what the so-called white man is doing right today. These same wicked acts in America, Babylon the Great, dealing with Hollywood, which is Hollywood, right? You make it to Hollywood, being a athlete, a rapper, any type of musician, right? Anyway, going through college, however you make it to Hollywood, these are the things that you have to portray. These are the things that you have to take on.
You will discover who the Canaanites really were, a people with a cursed origin who spread through a land that God had promised to Israel, but that was filled with dark rituals, unthinkable practices, and a religion led by gods who demanded the unimaginable. Behind the names Baal, Ashtoreth, and Moloch was a macabre spiritual system where even children were sacrificed on demonic altars. And the most shocking part, these horrible gods nearly overtook Israel. What does the Bible really reveal about the origin of these people, and why did God order their total destruction? From the earliest chapters of Genesis, we are led to understand that nothing in the Bible happens by chance. The genealogies, often overlooked, are like spiritual roots that sustain the great movements of sacred history. In Genesis 10:6, the name of Canaan appears for the first time, and the sons of Ham, Cush, and Mizraim, and Phut, and Canaan. a name that at first seems just another among many post-flood descendants, but when analyzed in the full light of Scripture, reveals itself as the origin of a people that would profoundly mark Israel's path, not just politically, but spiritually. The most curious and unsettling part is that Canaan was not cursed for his own actions, but for something his father, Ham, did. In Genesis 9:22-25, we read the account of Noah drunk, and Ham, seeing the nakedness of his father, commits an act that, though shrouded in mystery, carries a deep spiritual weight. Then Noah declares, "Cursed be Canaan, a servant of servants shall he be unto his brethren." Note the detail. The curse does not fall upon Ham, but upon his son. Why? Some scholars speculate that Canaan already displayed the moral and spiritual traits that would later define Canaanite culture: arrogance, sensuality, idolatry. Others see here a prophetic judgment, a divine foreshadowing of the path of corruption and paganism that this lineage would follow. The fact is, between the lines of this judgment, God is drawing the outlines of a story that will intertwine with Israel's holiness and divine justice against the nations that dive into idolatry and abominations. This origin is not just a genealogical detail, it's a theological foreshadowing. The descendants of Canaan would give rise to peoples later known for their depraved culture, for practices like temple prostitution, child sacrifice, and the worship of gods such as Baal, Ashtoreth, and Molech. These are echoes of an ancestral curse, signs of a moral corruption that was not punished by mere chance, but because it aligned with the perfect judgment of God. Now, consider this. Why was God so concerned with recording the details of this origin? Because Israel's story in Canaan cannot be understood without first understanding who the Canaanites were, and even more, why they were under judgment. This is where biblical theology begins to lead us into the next scene, a people cursed not just for their past, but for their future, for what they would deliberately choose to become. In Genesis 9:24-25, we read one of the most unsettling pronouncements in biblical history. "And Noah awoke from his wine, and knew what his younger son had done unto him. And he said, Cursed be Canaan, a servant of servants shall he be unto his brethren." At first glance, this seems like an overreaction. Ham commits the offense, but it is the grandson who suffers the consequences. Here, the Spirit of God invites us to look beyond the surface and discern the spiritual backdrop of this sentence. The curse upon Canaan, spoken by Noah, has been debated by theologians for centuries. But one thing is clear. This declaration was not a mere outburst of human emotion. It was a prophetic act, revealing the destiny of an entire lineage. Noah, as patriarch and instrument of divine will, verbalizes something already spiritually rooted in the life of that generation. Canaan, though only a descendant, would be the seed of a civilization marked by rebellion against the Creator, unrestrained idolatry, and the adoption of pagan religious practices that would be abominable in the eyes of the Lord. The text does not give us all the details as to why Canaan was chosen as the target of the curse. But as we examine the fruit of his descendants, the Canaanite peoples, such as the Hittites, Jebusites, Amorites, and Perizzites, we observe a disturbing pattern. That region, the land of Canaan, became a stronghold of all that the God of Israel detests: temple prostitution, child sacrifices to Molech, rituals with demons, and a perverted spirituality that stood in direct opposition to the holiness required by Yahweh. And there is something even deeper at play here. This curse reveals that God does not judge only isolated acts, but also the paths chosen by entire lineages. This is not injustice, but divine justice that sees the end from the beginning. The Lord who searches hearts knew that from Canaan's descendants would spring a culture that would not only reject the light but embrace darkness with enthusiasm. And this, as we will see ahead, would place Israel in constant spiritual danger through mingling with these peoples. This curse, therefore, was not merely a punishment, but a prophetic warning. It was like a bitter seed planted in the soil of history, which would later blossom into idolatry, promiscuity, and direct confrontations with God's holiness. And like every seed, it would grow and spread, dominating a land that, ironically, would be promised to a people called to purity and separation. The Bible is precise in describing the geographical extent of the land of Canaan. In Genesis 10:19, we find the original boundaries of the territory, and the border of the Canaanites was from Sidon, as thou comest to Gerar, unto Gaza, as thou goest unto Sodom and Gomorrah, and Admah and Zeboim, even unto Lasha. This was not a mere political map. It was a spiritual stage where one of the most crucial battles between idolatry and holiness would unfold between the Canaanite gods and the God of Israel. Strategically located between Egypt and Mesopotamia, the land of Canaan became a central point for trade, culture, and unfortunately also for moral corruption. Its fertile valleys and fortified cities housed a variety of peoples: Hittites, Amorites, Canaanites, Perizzites, Hivites, and Jebusites, all descendants of Canaan, all involved in spiritual practices that directly opposed biblical truth. It was a land rich in resources, but also saturated with idolatry, child sacrifice, and temple prostitution. As the descendants of Canaan multiplied, they spread throughout the region, from the Mediterranean Sea to the Jordan River, and from the Negev Desert to the northern regions of Phoenicia. Cities like Jericho, Hebron, Sidon, and Gaza became Canaanite urban centers, deeply influenced by the cults of Baal, Ashtoreth, and Moloch. Each city, each pagan altar, each profane ritual was a reminder that this land was spiritually occupied by forces contrary to the covenant God had established with Abraham. Now think with me, isn't it curious that the land promised by God to Abraham, a land of blessing flowing with milk and honey, was, at the time of the promise, inhabited by peoples immersed in abominations? This was not coincidence. It was divine providence. Because in commanding the possession of that land, God was also commanding its purification. He was about to carry out a judgment, and Israel would be the instrument of his justice. Thus, the territorial expansion of the Canaanites was not merely geographical progress. It was the proliferation of a spiritually hostile culture. Every city built, every altar raised to a false god was a direct affront to the living God, and the more the Canaanites grew, the closer came the time of God's judgment. The territory was defined, the peoples were spread, and the stage was set for the confrontation between heaven and idols. When we study Canaanite culture, it's impossible not to notice how deeply intertwined it was with their religion. Everything, from public rituals to family relationships, revolved around their Canaanite gods and the perverse demands of these false idols. The lifestyle of the Canaanite peoples was not neutral or merely cultural. It was a practical and continuous expression of active idolatry. The Canaanites built cities that were advanced for their time, with walls, agricultural systems, and well-established trade routes. But behind this appearance of prosperity was a moral decay that contaminated everything. Promiscuity was encouraged as a form of spiritual communion with the gods. The so-called temple prostitution involved men and women engaging in sexual rituals at the altars of Asherah and Ashtoreth in attempts to ensure fertility for the land. Daily life was marked by pagan festivals, drunkenness, and rites where sensuality was not only permitted but worshipped. Families were also deeply affected by this culture. Children were offered alive in sacrifice to Moloch, thrown into heated bronze furnaces while parents watched unmoved, convinced that such practice would bring blessings. This is the essence of what Leviticus 18 calls abominations. Practices so perverse that God warned Israel never to imitate them, saying, "After the doings of the land of Canaan, ye shall not do, neither shall ye walk in their ordinances." Leviticus 18:3. Canaanite culture, therefore, was not merely foreign to Israel, it was spiritually corrosive. Its value system completely inverted the principles of the true God. Where God demanded holiness, the Canaanites celebrated lust. Where God protected life, the Canaanites sacrificed it to demons. Where God established justice, they practiced oppression, witchcraft, and idolatry at every level of society. And yet this culture was seductive. It was rich in symbols, music, festivals, and sensuality. It was an intoxicating lifestyle that spread like a poisoned fragrance through the valleys of the land of Canaan. And that is exactly why the Lord, in his sovereignty, commanded that it be eradicated, not out of cruelty, but divine justice, to prevent Israel from being consumed by this spiritual corruption. But how exactly did this culture manifest in Canaanite religious worship? Who were these entities that demanded so much blood, pleasure, and perversion? The next step in this journey is to understand the spiritual machinery behind this culture, the Canaanite gods and the horrors of their worship. The Canaanite religion was a sophisticated yet perverse system, a demonic replica of what true worship to the Creator should be. While Israel received direct revelation from God through the law, the Canaanites plunged into a network of false gods, grotesque rituals, and institutionalized idolatry. Their religion was not merely a personal belief, it was the beating heart of society. Everything revolved around their cults, politics, agriculture, family life, warfare, even the weather. At the top of the Canaanite spiritual hierarchy was a true profane trinity. At the head stood Baal, the god of storm and fertility. Beside him, Ashtoreth, goddess of sexuality, fertility and war, and Asherah, his female counterpart, considered the consort of El, the supposed father god of the pantheon. And at an even darker level, Molech, the devourer of children. Each of these entities represented aspects of a paganism that blurred the spiritual with the sensual, the religious with the carnal, and the sacred with the profane. Canaanite temples were true centers of perversion, located on high places, the infamous high places mentioned throughout Scripture. These sites functioned as arenas for ritual orgies, drunken feasts, and even staged combats. Instead of spiritual sacrifices, they offered human sacrifices, especially of children. The idols were shaped in provocative, grotesque, and demonic forms, many of them with outstretched arms to receive the bodies of victims offered into fire. This idolatry was not mere superstition. It was a direct form of worship to demons. In Deuteronomy 32:17, Moses warns the people, saying, "They sacrificed unto devils, not to God, to gods whom they knew not." Here the truth is revealed clearly. What the Canaanites called religion was, in reality, spiritual paganism fueled by evil entities demanding blood, sex, and total depravity. It was a religion that distorted everything God had created for good: the body, worship, family, and society. And the most shocking part, this spiritual structure was effective. The crops came, the cities thrived, the people prospered. In human eyes, it seemed to work. This made the seductive power of Canaanite religion even more dangerous, because it offered visible promises, immediate pleasures, and social approval, all without repentance, without holiness, and without the weight of truth. That's why God didn't see the Canaanites merely as territorial enemies, but as a complete system of organized spiritual rebellion. And to understand the depth of this abyss, we need to take a closer look at the central figures of this religion, beginning with Baal, the chief among the Canaanite gods, whose worship not only rivaled the worship of God, but at many times nearly replaced it among the Israelites themselves. Baal. This name echoes like a dark thunder through the pages of the Old Testament. He was not just one more idol among many. He was the center of the Canaanite pantheon, the principal deity of their religion, and the greatest spiritual rival to the God of Israel. In Hebrew, Baal means Lord or Master, and that reveals much. The Canaanites did not see Baal as a symbolic figure, but as the ruler of fertility, weather, harvest, war, and for many, life itself. Baal was depicted as a young and vigorous warrior, often wielding a lightning bolt, a symbol of his supposed control over the skies and rain. His worship was deeply tied to the land of Canaan, as the Canaanites believed he was the one who opened the heavens to bring rain and fertilize the fields. When the harvest was plentiful, the people praised Baal. When drought struck, they performed rituals to awaken him from his supposed seasonal death. He was the false god of fertility, and his worship reflected that theme in every detail. And here begins the horror. The rituals of Baal worship involved religious orgies, temple prostitution, and even human sacrifices. Men and women would lie with sacred prostitutes in temples to imitate the union of Baal with Ashtoreth, hoping that the god would mirror the act in the heavens and fertilize the soil. It was a perversion of what God had created as sacred, turned into public spectacle. The sexual act, designed by God to be holy and intimate within marriage, was used as a ritual key to unlock agricultural blessings, a ritualized blasphemy. Baal worship was not something isolated or discreet. It was official, promoted by priests and priestesses, upheld by pagan kings, and practiced on a wide scale throughout the region of Canaan. In many instances, Baal's altars stood side by side with the idols of Asherah, symbolizing the profane union between male and female demonic forces, a mystical marriage between demons. The most disturbing part is that Baal worship directly influenced Israel. Kings like Ahab even built temples for him within the sacred territory of the Lord. Prophets like Elijah had to confront hundreds of Baal's prophets in epic spiritual showdowns, such as the one recorded in 1 Kings 18 on Mount Carmel. And even after countless divine warnings, the people often wavered, torn between the true God and the seductive worship of Baal. Baal was not just a statue, he was the personification of a spiritual system opposed to God, a system that promised quick blessings, immediate pleasure, and social acceptance, but demanded a terrible price, the soul. And if Baal reigned as the chief god, then who was his female counterpart? The next deity leads us even deeper into the shadows of Canaanite idolatry, Ashtoreth, the goddess of sex, war, and seduction. If Baal was the lord of fertility and the sky, Ashtoreth, also known as Astarte or Ishtar in neighboring cultures, was his consort, the mother goddess of Canaanite religion. But don't be misled by the title. She did not represent godly motherhood or nurturing love. Ashtoreth embodied sensuality, war, and religious promiscuity. Her worship was deeply embedded in Canaanite life, shaping behaviors, customs, and even perceptions of femininity. Her name is mentioned in verses like Judges 2:13, "And they forsook the Lord, and served Baal and Ashtoreth." This shows that her worship was intertwined with that of Baal, forming a kind of profane divine couple. The image of Ashtoreth was often depicted with exaggerated feminine features, prominent breasts, provocative posture, reflecting her association with unrestrained sexuality. It was common for her altars to be surrounded by poles called asherim, or sacred groves, places where temple prostitution rituals were openly performed. Worship of Ashtoreth was a celebration of pleasure without restraint. Women and men would offer themselves sexually as a form of devotion. It was a direct inversion of divine values. The body, created to be the temple of the spirit, was turned into an instrument of worship to demons disguised as gods. And most disturbingly, this practice was considered spiritually effective. The Canaanite peoples believed that ritualistic sensuality attracted blessings of fertility and prosperity. Furthermore, Ashtoreth was not just a goddess of sex, she was also invoked in warfare. Her personality fused lust with violence. It was common for warriors to seek her favor before battles, promising bloody rituals and orgiastic festivals in her honor if victorious. She represented the fusion of Eros and Thanatos, pleasure and death, on the same altar. And once again, what was Canaanite began to infiltrate Israel. 1 Samuel 7:3-4 records Samuel urging the people to get rid of strange gods, specifically mentioning Ashtoreth, showing her popularity among the Israelites. It is frightening to consider that the people set apart by God were seduced by a religion that mixed perversion and spirituality so seamlessly. This brazen idolatry, promoted through the figure of Ashtoreth, reveals the moral abyss of the Canaanites. And she was not alone. Beside her stood an even darker entity, one who demanded pure, innocent blood. Molech, the devourer of children, a step further into religious horror. Of all the abominations committed by the Canaanites, none equals the horror associated with the worship of Molech. This Canaanite god, also worshipped by other Semitic peoples, symbolized the peak of pagan idolatry and the deepest level of moral decay. Molech did not require songs, was not satisfied with incense, nor did he accept symbolic offerings. He demanded the most precious of all, children. The Bible is clear and forceful about this practice. In Leviticus 18:21, God commands, "And thou shalt not let any of thy seed pass through the fire to Molech, neither shalt thou profane the name of thy God, I am the Lord." Here we see that sacrificing children was not just a barbaric act. It was a direct affront to the name of God. It was pure profanation. Rituals to Molech were carried out on iron altars shaped like grotesque figures, often with a man's body and a bull's head, arms outstretched. Inside the statue was a blazing furnace. Children were placed alive in the glowing arms of the idol, while priests beat drums and played flutes at deafening volumes to drown out the screams. It was a hellish scene, justified by a demonic belief that offering the firstborn would bring blessings, victories, and abundant harvests. At this point, Canaanite religion crossed the line of the irreparable. This was no longer simply about idolatry or promiscuity, but a complete surrender to demonic influence. Child sacrifice was not an isolated exception. It was a public event, an official and socially accepted ritual. The death of the innocent was turned into a religious spectacle. And tragically, this practice infected Israel at various times. In 2 Kings 23:10, King Josiah destroyed the place called Tophet in the valley of the son of Hinnom, so that no one would make his son or his daughter to pass through the fire to Molech. This shows how deeply Canaanite influence had infiltrated even God's chosen people, leading them to imitate the abominable religious practices that the Lord so thoroughly despised. The figure of Molech represents more than an ancient idol. He is the image of what happens when humanity completely loses its sense of holiness, when the sin of the Canaanites becomes cultural and the worship of demons is legitimized as faith. He is the ultimate result of a society fully surrendered to spiritual deception. But as terrifying as this worship was, it wasn't isolated. Molech was part of an entire spiritual system, and these Canaanite abominations were structured, organized with rituals, temples, and their own doctrine. This leads us directly to the next question. What exactly did God see in these practices that was so severe as to command with such clarity the total destruction of the Canaanites? As we look more closely at the religious life of the Canaanites, we begin to understand why God, in his divine justice, declared such practices abominations. In Leviticus 18, God lists one by one the perversions practiced by these peoples: incest, bestiality, temple prostitution, human sacrifices, and concludes in verse 27, "For all these abominations have the men of the land done, which were before you, and the land is defiled." Here is the central point. It wasn't just the people who were defiled. The land itself was spiritually polluted by the works of darkness. Canaanite religion was a complete package of degradation. Their worship blended orgies, drunkenness, mutilations, enchantments, and possessions. Priests and priestesses acted as mediums, possessed by demonic spirits, guiding the people through rituals of trances, self-mutilation, and even ritualized cannibalism in some cases. It was a deep plunge into the densest paganism and the darkest shadows of corrupted spirituality. Idolatry in Israel was not just a cultural risk, it was a spiritually devastating threat, precisely because the Canaanite practices were seductive, sensory, and indulgent. They offered a religion that fed the human ego and carnal instincts, something that the sinful heart of man naturally desires. That's why God repeatedly warned, "And ye shall not walk in the manners of the nation which I cast out before you." Leviticus 20:23. Among the most scandalous rites were the fertility festivals, held on full moon nights, where hundreds of men and women, including youths, participated in mass orgies at the feet of Baal and Ashtoreth's altars. Children were sacrificed, blood flowed, music roared, and all was offered as a form of communion with the gods. It was a worship that mixed spirituality with pleasure, fear, and violence. There was no line between the profane and the sacred. Everything was allowed, everything was justified. It was widespread moral corruption. And it's important to understand, these practices were not fringe. They were institutionalized, endorsed by kings and leaders, taught from childhood. The religion of the Canaanites was an organized structure of spiritual perversion with well-defined rites, established traditions, and even internal ethical codes, all of which were in deep opposition to biblical truth and the holy character of God. But what did God do in the face of such iniquity? He did not remain silent. His response was clear and direct, recorded in Deuteronomy 20:17-18. "But thou shalt utterly destroy them, as the Lord thy God hath commanded thee, that they teach you not to do after all their abominations, which they have done unto their gods. So should ye sin against the Lord your God." In other words, the destruction of the Canaanites was not arbitrary. It was a moral and spiritual judgment, announced in advance and carried out with precision. This judgment leads us directly to the next essential point: the biblical reason behind God's extreme command to destroy the Canaanites completely. What was the weight of their sin? And what does that reveal to us about the holiness of God? Among the most solemn commandments God gave to Israel before the conquest of the land of Canaan is an order that many modern readers find harsh or even incomprehensible. But in light of divine justice, it becomes clear. In Deuteronomy 20:16-18, the Lord declares, "But of the cities of these people, which the Lord thy God doth give thee for an inheritance, thou shalt save alive nothing that breatheth, that they teach you not to do after all their abominations." God was not merely authorizing a military conquest. He was executing a spiritual judgment against a civilization steeped in deliberate and ongoing sin. The Canaanites were not innocent. For centuries, since the time of Abraham, their practices had been tolerated with divine long-suffering. In Genesis 15:16, God states that Abraham's descendants would inherit the land only after 4 generations, for the iniquity of the Amorites is not yet full. This shows that judgment did not come impulsively, but after centuries of idolatry, child sacrifice, temple prostitution, and alliances with demons. When the measure of iniquity was full, the decree came: total purification of the land. It's essential to understand that God, as a just judge, does not act with partiality. He punished the Canaanites in the same way he would later punish Israel when they followed the same paths. The destruction of the Canaanite peoples was a historical and spiritual lesson to show that the Lord does not tolerate institutionalized sin, especially when it infiltrates the realm of religion. False worship, when organized and celebrated, becomes a refined form of rebellion, and as such it demands judgment. Moreover, the command to destroy had a purpose: to protect Israel. God knew that if the people coexisted with the Canaanites, they would eventually be seduced by their culture, their idols, their rituals. And in fact, that is what happened when they failed to obey completely. Thus, the judgment was not only an end for the Canaanites, it was a beginning for Israel. The cleansing of the land was part of the consecration process for the place where the Lord's name would dwell, where the temple would be built, where the Messiah would set his feet. This judgment also teaches us that God's holiness is non-negotiable. He is long-suffering, yes, but he is also just. And when the iniquity of a people reaches levels that corrupt everything, morality, family, worship, government, God raises the axe of judgment. The destruction of the Canaanites is therefore a mirror reflecting how seriously God treats collective sin and cultural idolatry. But the story doesn't end there. For despite God's warnings, his chosen people would yield to Canaanite influence. They would allow false gods into their homes, raise Asherah poles on their land, and contaminate the worship of the true God. And what happened to Israel for tolerating what should have been destroyed? What God had warned so clearly came to pass with terrifying precision. Israel, by failing to completely eliminate the Canaanite peoples, became entangled in their customs and deeply contaminated by their culture and religion. In Judges 2:2-3, the Lord rebukes, "And ye shall make no league with the inhabitants of this land, but ye have not obeyed my voice. Why have ye done this? Wherefore I also said, I will not drive them out from before you, but they shall be as thorns in your sides, and their gods shall be a snare unto you." And that is exactly what happened. Canaanite influence entered the heart of Israel like a silent poison. Altars to Baal began to appear among the Israelites, Asherah groves were restored, and the people began to participate in rituals they had once considered abominable. Pagan religious practices ceased to be seen as sin and were gradually integrated into everyday life. Idolatry became normal, then tolerated, then revered. The horror of child sacrifice, something God had clearly forbidden, was eventually practiced by kings of Judah such as Ahaz and Manasseh, and the consequences were devastating, not just spiritually, but also socially and politically. The nation of Israel deteriorated, became divided, suffered defeats, and eventually fell into exile. The Babylonian captivity was, in large part, a direct result of the spiritual contamination that began with the tolerance of Canaanite customs. The land that was supposed to be holy became like Canaan, and therefore was also judged. The tragedy is that God's chosen people exchanged the glory of the true God for mute idols, for false gods that could neither hear nor save. They abandoned biblical truth for popular beliefs, for cultural practices that made sense in human eyes, but were an affront to divine holiness. As recorded in Jeremiah 2:13, "For my people have committed two evils. They have forsaken me, the fountain of living waters, and hewed them out cisterns, broken cisterns that can hold no water." Israel's error serves as an eternal warning. When idolatry becomes comfortable, when the culture around us dictates the terms of our faith, the result is always downfall. God commanded the destruction of the Canaanites not out of cruelty, but out of mercy, to preserve his people from spiritual destruction. But disobedience turned blessing into judgment and inheritance into ruin. Still, in the midst of such corruption, a contrast begins to form, ever clearer. The God of Israel, holy, just, long-suffering, faithful, in contrast to the demonic gods of the Canaanites, fickle, cruel, and powerless. When we compare the God of Israel to the Canaanite gods, we immediately realize we are not simply dealing with different religious systems, but with two opposing spiritual kingdoms in essence. The Lord, revealed to Israel, is holy, pure, just, unchanging, full of mercy and truth. Baal, Ashtoreth, Moloch, and the other Canaanite idols, on the other hand, are manifestations of deception, sensuality, death, manipulation, and human degradation. While the true God creates human beings in his image and demands justice, the Canaanite gods corrupt that image, reducing man to flesh, instinct and fleeting pleasure. God asks for faith and holiness. Baal demands sex. God requires repentance. Molech demands innocent blood. The Lord protects the family. Ashtoreth sexualizes it. In every aspect, there is a direct confrontation between the Creator and the demons disguised as gods operating in the pagan worship of Canaanite religion. The revelation of the God of Israel came accompanied by moral laws, ethical commandments, and a call to justice and mercy. Deuteronomy 6:4-5 proclaims, "Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one Lord, and thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thine heart, and with all thy soul, and with all thy might." This was not just a rule. It was a declaration of exclusivity, fidelity, and absolute worship. In contrast, the Canaanite peoples served multiple gods, worshipping according to their passions, in a system that promoted promiscuity and perversion. Moreover, the Canaanite idols were man-made: wood, stone, metal, lifeless, powerless, spiritless. But the God of Israel spoke, acted, judged, forgave, and above all, manifested himself with real power. Where idols demanded but gave nothing, the Lord promised and fulfilled. He delivered Israel from Egypt, fed the people in the wilderness, made water flow from the rock, guided them with cloud and fire. He was alive, present, eternal. This contrast explains why idolatry in Israel was so grievous. It wasn't merely exchanging one religion for another. It was abandoning the one true God to follow masked demons, spiritual distortions that demanded everything and gave nothing. The biblical story, therefore, is not just an account of wars and lands, but a theological conflict between the God who saves and the gods who corrupt. And this spiritual battle continues today, under other forms, with other names, but the same principles. The question that echoes from Canaan to today remains the same. Whom will you serve? The answer changes everything. If this video impacted you, imagine what's still to come. Subscribe now, activate the bell, and join us on
Hey, so just some things I was thinking about as I was watching this video, man. But this is a heavy video dealing with, them Canaanites, man. Those 7 nations, or those 7 tribes, or those Canaanites. We were talking about last night, the so-called white man, the self-proclaimed so-called white man, has spent trillions of dollars to keep Jake dumbed down. But the Lord, man, as it says in Psalm 124, if it had not been for Yahweh. Let's get this. Because the so-called white man brought all these idols to America, man. And as I typed the lesson that I was trying to do, but for some reason, even though I was plugged into the Wi-Fi, the video was buffering. This is Psalm 124:2. If it had not been Yahweh who was on our side when men rose up against us, then they had swallowed us up quick when their wrath was kindled against us. And their wrath the so-called white man's wrath has been kindled since the garden, man. Genesis 3:15. Then the waters had overwhelmed us. The stream had gone over our soul. Then the proud waters had gone over our soul. Blessed be the Lord Yahweh, which is the Most High's name in the Paleo Hebrew. Lord in all caps is Yahweh, who have not given us as a prey to their teeth. Listen, man, these devils spent trillions of dollars with the music, the movies, the TVs, the shows, the entertainment that's in America to keep you dumbed down to not know that you are perfect. We were talking about this last night at camp. The Lord made us perfect, man. And as the head brother, big brother, my big brother Nahar always say, the so-called white man has destroyed our people to the point of when you look in the mirror, you think that you got flaws. Every time we look in the mirror, we think that we got flaws, that it's something wrong with us, man. There is nothing wrong with not one of us. You so-called Negro, Latino, Native Americans, West Indians, and Haitians. There is nothing wrong with us, man. Now, of course, 2/3 are going to die, whoever they are, because the Lord hasn't reactivated them to the truth. But for us to have been reactivated to this wisdom, knowledge, and understanding, I'm thinking about these. I got some precepts, but I was thinking about this, right? I had a brother to read this Friday at camp. This is Psalm 32:5. I acknowledge my sin unto thee, and my iniquity have I not hid. I said, I will confess my transgressions unto Yahweh, and thou forgavest the iniquity of my sins. For this shall everyone that is godly pray unto thee in the time when thou mayest be found. You can't find the Lord got to find you. Because the scripture tell you in Habakkuk, you got, not Habakkuk, Hosea 5:15, the Lord said he hid his face from us, as also in Deuteronomy 32. The Lord hid his face from us, man. So right here, verse 6, for this shall everyone that is godly pray unto thee in a time when thou mayest be found. We couldn't find the Lord. The Lord found us. Let's read this here. The Lord found you, man. And like Asaph said, I was as a beast before thee. But then he said the Lord took him by his right hand and gave him his counsel. This is Deuteronomy 32:20. And he said, I will hide my face from them. I will see what their end shall be. And the end is only the remnant going to be saved. For they are a very froward generation, children in whom is no faith. That's why Yahweh said in Luke 19, when he returned, shall he find faith in the earth. Yahweh just said in Deuteronomy 32:20, in children in whom is no faith. This is Luke 19 in verse, where is it? Luke 19. I'm sorry, went down too far. Right here. Luke 19:10, it reads, for the Son of Man is come to seek and to save that which was lost. Right? So then it's the one in, hold on, where is it? Right here, Luke 18, in verse 8, it reads, I tell you that he will avenge them speedily. Nevertheless, when the Son of Man cometh, shall he find faith on the earth. So this going back to Deuteronomy 32. What did Yahweh say? Deuteronomy 32:20. And he said, I will hide my face from them. I will see what their end shall be. For they are a very froward generation, children in whom is no faith. See, they have moved me to jealousy with that which is not God. They have provoked me to anger with their vanities. And I will move them to jealousy with those which are not a people. I will provoke them to anger with a foolish nation, which is talking about the Israelite foreigners. When you read the New Testament, all the Israelites over Asia Minor, all over Asia Minor, was Judah, Benjamin, and Levi, and a sprinkle of the northern kingdom. But it was Judah, Benjamin, and Levi. That's why I tell you in Acts 2, it said, it reads, Jews, devout men out of every nation among heaven, man. So here's the Lord saying that he will hide his face. I will see what the end shall be. For they are a very far generation, children in whom is no faith. And Yahweh Shah said it here. Again, Luke 18 and 8. I tell you, he will avenge them speedily. Nevertheless, when the Son of Man cometh, shall he find faith on the earth? Because the faith is only with the remnant. Now, dealing with what happened with these Canaanites, the so-called white man spent trillions of dollars to keep Jake down. Because the brothers read last night the precept when the Lord said he made us perfect, man. He made us perfect. So when you look in the mirror and you think there is some flaw in you, no, man. That's what the so-called white man did. He spent trillions of dollars to make you think that you are nothing. You are a heathen. I want to read these precepts, right? This is Psalms. And the video was long enough. But I just, and this ain't about views. This is about edification. I don't care about the fucking views. This is Psalms 106. I'm going to start at verse 34. It reads here. Verse 33. Because they provoked his spirit, so that he spake unadvisedly with his lips. They did not straw the nations, concerning whom Yahweh commanded them, but were mingled among the heathen, and learned their works. And they served their idols, which were a snare unto them. Yea, they sacrificed their sons and daughters unto devils, and shed innocent blood, even the blood of their sons and of their daughters, whom they sacrificed unto the idols of Canaan. And the land was polluted with blood. Thus were they defiled with their own works, and went a whoring with their own inventions. Therefore was the wrath of Yahweh kindled against his people, insomuch that he abhorred his own inheritance. And he gave them into the hand of the heathen, and they that hated them ruled over them. Their enemies also oppressed them, and they were brought into subjection under their hand. Many times did he deliver them, but they provoked him with their counsel, and were brought low for their iniquity. Nevertheless, he regarded their affliction when he heard their cry, and he remembered for them his covenant, and repented according to the multitude of his mercies. He made them also to be pitied of all those that carried them captive. Save us, O Yahweh, our power, and gather us from among the heathen, to give thanks unto thy holy name, and to the triumph in thy praise. So I read Psalms 32 and 5 and 6. It said, they that are godly will pray unto thee, right? When you go to Judges, this is Judges 10, right here in verse 15, it reads, and the children of Israel said unto the Lord Yahweh, we have sinned. Is 2/3 going to say this? The scripture tell you that 2/3 will not say this. As a matter of fact, let me prove it to you that the Lord don't care about 2/3. Look at this. And this is in the New Testament. John 9 and 31. Now we know that God heareth not sinners. But if any man be a worshiper of God, and doeth his will, him he heareth. Here's the other precept. Proverbs 28 and 9. It reads, he that turneth away his ear from hearing the law, even his prayer shall be an abomination. So here in the book of Judges, this refers to the remnant that's praying to the Lord. Look at this. This is Judges 10, 11 and 12. Let's read all the way down, right? It reads, Judges 10 and 11. And Yahweh said unto the children of Israel, all 12 tribes, did not I deliver you from the Egyptians and from the Amorites? Right? We took the land of the Amorites. That's Canaan, Israel today. From the children of Ammon, the so-called Japanese, and from the Philistines, the Zidonians, also, and the Amalekites, and the Moabites did oppress you, and ye cried to me, and I delivered you out of their hand. Yet ye have forsaken me, and served other gods. Wherefore will I deliver you no more? Go and cry unto the gods which ye have chosen. Let them deliver you in the time of your tribulation. Look, verse 15. So out of all of Israel, look what's said here. And the children of Israel said unto Yahweh, we have sinned. It is all of Israel? No, this talking about the elect, the remnant. We have sinned. Do thou unto us whatsoever seemeth good unto thee. Look, deliver us only, we pray thee this day. And they put away the strange gods from among them and served Yahweh. And his soul was grieved for the misery of Israel. Now it said, deliver us only, we pray thee this day. And they put away the strange gods from among them. Who? The remnant. That's why I say here in Isaiah 10 and 20, and it shall come to pass in that day that the remnant of Israel and such as are escaped of the house of Jacob shall no more stay upon him that smote them, but shall stay upon the Lord, the Holy One of Israel. The remnant shall return, even the remnant of Jacob, unto the mighty power. Look at this. When you go to Numbers 23. I want to make this point here. Numbers 23 and 23. Surely there is no enchantment against Jacob. What Jacob is this? Neither is there any divination against Israel. What Israel is this? According to the time, it shall be said of Jacob and of Israel, what have God wrought? What Jacob and what Israel is this? Let me show you. Galatians chapter 6 and 16. And as many as walk according to this rule. Who? The remnant. Peace be on them and mercy and upon the Israel of God. That's the remnant that it mentioned in Isaiah 10 and 20. The remnant. Even Paul said it in Romans 9. Look at this. Romans 9. Right here. Romans 9. Verse 25. As he said also in Hosea, I will call them my people, which were not my people, and her beloved, which was not beloved. Here is Paul quoting two different precepts, two different chapters in the book in the Old Testament. Verse 26. And it shall come to pass that in the place where it was said unto them, ye are not my people, there shall they be called the children of the living God. That's Hosea 1 and 10. Look at this. He's quoting Isaiah chapter 10 right here. Romans 9 and 27. Isaiah also cried concerning Israel. Though the number of the children of Israel be as the sand of the sea, a remnant shall be saved. That's what I just read in Isaiah 10, 20 and 21. So who is the Israel of the Lord? In Judges 10 that said, let's go back to this. Judges 10. The Lord said, from 11, I delivered you from the Egyptians, the Amorites, Ammon, the Philistines, the Zidonians, Amalek, and the Moabites. What it said, verse 15, and the children of Israel said unto Yahweh, we have sinned. Do thou unto us whatsoever seemeth good unto thee, deliver us only. Now look at this. I'm going to make a point here. They said, we have sinned. Do thou unto us whatsoever seemeth good unto thee, deliver us only. Let me show you something. When you go to Jeremiah, because they said, do thou to us what seemeth good unto thee. You know what the Lord said in Jeremiah 24 right here? He said he's going to deliver the remnant of Israel into captivity for their good. Let me read it to you. Look at this. Jeremiah 24 in verse 1. Yahweh showed me, and behold, 2 baskets of figs were set before the temple of the Lord, after Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, have carried away captive Jeconiah, the son of Jehoiakim, king of Judah, and the princes of Judah, with the carpenters and smiths from Jerusalem, and had brought them to Babylon. Yahweh was a carpenter, right? 1 basket had very good figs, even like the figs that were first ripe. This is the elect, the remnant. And the other basket had very naughty figs, which could not be eaten. They were so bad. Then said Yahweh unto me, what seest thou, Jeremiah? And I said, figs, the good figs, very good, and the evil, very evil, that cannot be eaten, they are so evil. And the word of Yahweh came unto me, saying, thus saith Yahweh, the God of Israel, like these good figs. Here's the point I want to make. They go back to Judges 10. So will I acknowledge them that are carried away captive of Judah, whom I have sent out of this place into the land of the Chaldeans for their good. Hold on. What it said in Judges 10? Those that repented to the Lord, they said, Judges 10 and 16, Judges 10 and 15, and the children of Israel said unto Yahweh, we have sinned. Do thou unto us whatsoever seemeth good unto thee. Deliver us only. We pray to this day. Jeremiah 24. So they said, what? The Lord said, thus saith Yahweh, verse 5, the God of Israel, like these good figs, so will I acknowledge them that are carried away captive of Judah, whom I have sent out of this land into the land of the Chaldeans for their good. For I will set my eyes upon them for good, the remnant, and I will bring them again to this land, and I will build them and not pull them down, and I will plant them and not pluck them up. And I will give them an heart to know me, that I am Yahweh, and they shall be my people, and I will be their God. This is in Ezekiel 37. Also, it's in Revelations 3 and 21. For they shall return unto me with their whole heart. And as the evil figs, which cannot be eaten, this is 2/3 of our people, they are so evil, surely thus saith Yahweh, so will I give Zedekiah the king of Judah and his princes and the residue of Jerusalem that remain in this land, and them that dwell in the land of Egypt, and I will deliver them to be removed into all the kingdoms of the earth for their hurt, to be a reproach and a proverb, a taunt and a curse in all places where I shall drive them. And I will send sword, the famine, and the pestilence among them, till they be consumed from off the land that I gave unto them and to their fathers. So the Lord is sending the remnant to captivity for their good. Look at this. Here's another precept to back that up. Jeremiah 30. In verse 10. Therefore fear thou not, O my servant Jacob, saith Yahweh, neither be dismayed, O Israel, for lo, I will save thee from afar, for thy seed from the land of thy captivity, and Jacob shall return and shall be in rest, and be quiet, and none shall make him afraid. For I am with thee, saith Yahweh, to save thee. Listen, because Genesis said heathens going to get salvation. Though I make a full end of all nations, whether I have scattered thee, yet will I not make a full end of thee, but I will correct thee in measure, and will not leave thee altogether unpunished. The remnant. For thus saith Yahweh, thy bruise is incurable, and thy wound is grievous. There is none to plead thy cause, that thou mayest be bound up. Thou hast no healing medicines. All thy lovers have forgotten thee. They seek thee not. For I have wounded thee with the wound of an enemy, with the chastisement of a cruel one. For the multitude of thine iniquity because thy sins were increased. Because we followed the ways of them damn Canaanites, man. And all the other heathens. Why criest thou for thine affliction? Thy sorrow is incurable for the multitude of thine iniquity, because thy sins were increased. I have done these things unto thee. The Lord did it. Now let's go here. Isaiah 45 and 20. It reads, assemble yourselves and come, draw near together. Who, Lord? Ye that are escaped of the nations. This is only talking to the remnant. They have no knowledge. They have no knowledge that set up the wood of the graven images and pray unto a God that cannot save. Who is the God that cannot save? Jesus Christ, Serapis Christos, Jesus Christos, Molech, Shiva, the Hindu god is Shiva. Because niggas got Shiva dreads all in their head, dreads, BKA, better known as Shiva Jatas. You know, you worshiping an idol, the Lord gonna kill you. Whoever you is out there. This is Deuteronomy 32 and 16. They provoked him to jealousy with strange gods. With abominations provoked they him to anger. They sacrificed unto devils, not to God, to gods whom they knew not, to new gods that came newly up, whom your fathers feared not. Just like Serapis Christus, which Ptolemy, one of the generals of Alexander, created Serapis Christus. Serapis Christos. Jesus Christ, a new God that came newly up. They sacrificed unto devils, not to God, to gods whom they knew not, to new gods that came newly up, whom your fathers feared not. Yeah. This is Deuteronomy 4 and 27. But the Lord said we was going to do this. And Yahweh shall scatter you among the nations, and ye shall be left few in number among the heathen, which is only going to be the remnant. Whether the Lord Yahweh shall lead you, and there you shall serve gods, the work of men's hands, wood and stone, which neither see, nor hear, nor eat, nor smell. But if from thence thou shalt seek Yahweh thy God, like it's in Baruch, thou shalt find him, if thou seek him with all thine heart and with all thy soul. Look at this. Isaiah 29. The remnant have put away. And this is why I tell you when you got let me read this first. Isaiah 29 and 13. Look at this. It reads. I'm sorry, Isaiah 26 and 13. Salaki. Isaiah 26 and 13, it reads, O Yahweh, our power, other lords besides thee have had dominion over us, but by thee only will we make mention of thy name. Look, they are dead. To who? The remnant. They are dead, is verse 14. They shall not live. They are deceased. They shall not rise. Therefore hast thou visited and destroyed them, and made all the memorial to perish. This is going to happen to the Edomites. Look, verse 15. Thou hast increased the nation, O Yahweh. Thou hast increased the nation, the remnant of Israel. Thou art glorified through the remnant of Israel. Thou art glorified. Thou hast removed it far unto all the ends of the earth. Yahweh, in trouble have they visited thee. They poured out a prayer when thy chastening was upon them. The remnant. Because it tell you in Job 36, look at this, 13. But the hypocrites in heart heap up wrath, they cry not when he bindeth them. 2/3 ain't crying. These niggas is in the worst captivity ever. Look at this. Additions to Esther 5 and 8. Nevertheless, it satisfies them not that we are in bitter captivity, but they have stricken hands with their idols. And this is the precept to Jeremiah, which is the precept that I just read to you. Jeremiah 5 and 3. O Yahweh, are not thy eyes upon the truth? Thou hast stricken them, but they have not grieved. Thou hast consumed them, but they have refused to receive correction. They have made their faces harder than a rock. They have refused to return. So in Job 36 and 13, this is talking about Israel. But the hypocrites in heart heap up wrath. They cry not when he bindeth them. They die in youth, and their life is among unclean. They die because they still follow the ways of the so-called white man. He delivered the poor in his affliction and opened his ears in oppression. They die not. But the hypocrites in heart heap up wrath. They cry not when he bindeth them. 2/3 ain't crying. It's the remnant, to go back to the Judges 10 and 15. It's the remnant that the Lord, he said he sent them into captivity for their good. As I read Jeremiah 30, the Lord said he will correct them in measure. Look at this. Ecclesiasticus 17, right? It reads, for in the division of the nations of the whole earth, he set a rule over every people. But Israel is the Lord's portion. And that's Deuteronomy 32, verse 8 and 9. Whom being his firstborn, he nourished with discipline, and giving him the light of his love, do not forsake him. And that light, 2 precepts, right? First, I'm going to get the one to show you in Hebrew, so you want to say, oh, the book of Baruch, that Bob ain't canonized. Well, here is Baruch chapter 10. I'm sorry, what's that? Baruch, I'm not Baruch, Hebrews, let me slow down. I be moving too fast. What's that? Hebrews 10 and 32, right? It reads, but call to remembrance the former days, in which after ye were illuminated, you endured a great fight of affliction. So see the light, right? That light. Here's the one in Baruch. Baruch 4 and 2. Turn thee, O Jacob, and take hold of it. Hold of what, Lord? Walk in the presence of the light thereof, that thou mayest be illuminated. So this light, only the remnant get, which I was going to go to this, Ezekiel. Only the remnant get this light, man. Ezekiel 14 and 22. Yet behold, therein shall be left a remnant that shall be brought forth out of all the shit that the self-proclaimed so-called white man did by bringing all those idols of the Canaanites. The Lord said he going to rain down his doctrine in Deuteronomy 32, verse 1 and 2. And it shall distill among the tender herb. Look at this. Yet behold, therein shall be left a remnant that shall be brought forth. Who, Lord? Both sons and daughters. Behold, they shall come forth unto you, and ye shall see their way and their doings. And ye shall be comforted concerning the evil that I have brought upon Jerusalem, even concerning all that I have brought upon it. So when the hopeful elect see the judgments of the 2/3. They're going to rejoice in the Lord, because our rejoices in Yahweh Bashim Shah. It reads, and they shall comfort you when you shall see their ways and their doings, and ye shall know that I have not done without cause all that I have done in it, saith Yahweh power. And this is my closing precept. Isaiah 27:6. Look at this, man. Fire, man. This is a blood clot of fire. This is Isaiah 27:6. He shall cause them that come of Jacob to take root, rooted and grounded. That's Colossians 2:6. Israel shall blossom and bud and fill the face of the world with fruit. What? What? Hold on. I got a precept to go with this. Psalms. This is Psalms 85:10. Mercy and truth are met together. Righteousness and peace have kissed each other. It's a truth shall spring out of the earth. Truth shall spring out of the earth, and righteousness shall look down from heaven. What does it mean for righteousness to look down from heaven? Deuteronomy 32, verse 1. Give ear, O ye heavens, and I will speak, and hear, O earth, the words of my mouth. My doctrine shall drop as the rain, my speech shall distill as the dew, as the small rain upon the tender herb, and as the showers upon the grass. See it? Let's go back. Salakia. Let's get this one. Let's get this one to add to it. Isaiah 44:1. Yet now hear, O Jacob, my servant, and Israel, whom I have chosen. Thus saith Yahweh that made thee and formed thee from the womb, which will help thee. Fear not, O Jacob, my servant, and thy Jeshurun, whom I have chosen. For I will pour water upon him that is thirsty. Right? Matthew 5:6. Blessed is he that both thirsts and hunger after righteousness, and floods upon the dry ground. The dry ground with a valley of dry bones, Ezekiel 37, which is America. It was dried up here. I will pour my spirit upon thy seed, and my blessing upon thy offspring, and they shall spring up as among the grass, as willow by the watercourses. So what I just read in Psalms 85. Truth, in verse 11, truth shall spring out of the earth, and righteousness shall look down from heaven. So back here in Isaiah 27, man, the Lord is cold. Isaiah 27:6. He shall cause them, who, Lord, that come of Jacob to take root. Israel shall blossom and bud, and fill the face of the world with fruit. That's the Habakkuk 2:14. Habakkuk 2:14. For the earth shall be filled with the knowledge of the glory of Yahweh, as the waters cover the sea. So everything that this devil did, I was going to get this too, the self-proclaimed so-called white man, is only for 2/3. Look at this. Deuteronomy 32:34. It reads, is not this laid in store? Salakia, is not this laid up in store with me and sealed up among my treasures? Behold, it's to me belongeth vengeance and recompense. Their foot shall slide in due time, for the day of their calamity is at hand, and the things that shall come upon them make haste. For the Lord shall judge his people. For the Lord shall judge his people when he seeth that their power is gone, and there is none shut up or left. And he shall say, where are their gods, their rock in whom they trusted, which did eat the fat of their sacrifices, and drank the wine of their drink offerings? Let them rise up and help you and be your protection. See, it say, which did eat the fat of their sacrifices. They sacrificed their kids to Molech. Did all that wicked shit in that video that the Canaanites was doing. And there it say, which did eat the fat of their sacrifices and drink the wine of their drink offerings. Let them rise up and help you and be your protection. Closing precept. That's what the Lord said in Jeremiah. Look at this. Jeremiah 2. You Jakes. Hey, and I'm going to say it plainly. Hey, excuse my Swahili. Excuse my French. You 2/3 are fucked. Jeremiah 2:30. In vain have I smitten your children. They receive no correction. Your own sword have devoured your prophets like a destroying lion. O generations, see the word of Yahweh. Have I been a wilderness unto Israel, a land of darkness? Wherefore say my people, we are lords. We will come no more unto thee. That's the 2/3 that said, man, we don't need the Lord no more, man. We don't need the Lord no more. Can a maid forget her ornaments, or a bride her attire? Yet my people have forgotten me days without number. Why trimmest thou thy way to seek love? And that's what Jay did. Start with those Canaanite idols. Therefore hast thou also taught the wicked ones thy ways. It was passed down. That's why Big Mama and Grandmama and Granddad and them say, apply your mind, baby, to the so-called white man system. Keep your head down. You can be just like them. Also in thy skirts is found the blood of the souls of poor innocents, which is the children they were sacrificing to Molech. I have not found it by secret search, but upon all these. Yet thou sayest, because I am innocent, surely his anger shall turn from me. Behold, I will plead with thee, saith the Lord, because thou sayest, I have not sinned. Why gaddest thou about so much to change thy way? Thou also shalt be ashamed of Egypt, as thou was ashamed of Assyria. Yea, thou shalt go forth from him, and thy hands upon thy head. You know what it is? Put your hands upon your head. For Yahweh have rejected thy confidences, and thou shalt not prosper in them. As it said in Ezekiel 20, the Lord shall pollute your gifts, which is fucking wickedness, man. Hey, Lord, what's edifying? We give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashim Yahweh Shah, Bahashim Rikah Kodash. Let me get these 2 precepts. Double honor to the apostles, elder bishop, and elders of great millstone who rule well, who teach well. Who are the apostles and elders of all of Israel, whether accepted or not. And a sincere salutation to all the Akim, believing this truth and pushing this truth by the 4 winds of the earth. The entire world shall like to the hopeful elect. Shalom to the Akwad who are listening and learning. If you sisters who are listening and learning, throughout tuning in, may Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shah continue bless you in your houses. May the blessing of blessing be upon your house. So next time I say Shalom, Wa Abba. Isaiah 29:18. And in that day shall the deaf hear the words of the book, and the eyes of the blind shall see out of obscurity and out of darkness. The meek also shall increase their joy in Yahweh, and the poor among men shall rejoice in the Holy One of Israel. This is also Isaiah 9:2. The people that walked in darkness have seen a great light. They that dwell in the land of the shadow of death, upon them had the light shine. Thou hast multiplied the nation, like it said in Isaiah 27, and not increased the joy. Thou It said, they joy before thee, according to the joy and harvest. The Lord has multiplied the nation of Israel, but not increased the joy. 2/3 ain't rejoicing in Yahweh, Bahashim Yahushua. The remnant is, they joy before thee, according to the joy and harvest. And as men rejoice when they divide the spoil. Closing precept, Isaiah 26:7. The way of the just is uprightness, thou most upright. Doest weigh the path of the just. Yeah, in the way of thy judgments, O Yahweh, Bahashim Yahushua, have we waited for thee. The desire of our soul is to thy name, Yahweh, Bahashim Yahushua, Bahashim Rikah Quarash, and to the remembrance of thee. With my soul had I desired thee in the night. Yeah, with my spirit within me will I seek thee early. For when thy judgments are in the earth, the inhabitants of the world will learn